Hey everybody, welcome back to Indie Film Cafe. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody. I've got a special guest.
Oh,
Yeah, that'll be
sorry.
your turn.
Yes, it would be. No, my computer froze up for a second. I was like, what the heck? Uh, I'm Matt Anderson. I am a writer and director and owner of Key 13 Films.
Sorry, I had to let my dog in. Oh, my
Hey, no
sister's dog.
worries.
Uh,
No
she was
worries. Oh,
she was nicefully waiting. She was banging on I thought she could open the door. She's done it before. Actually, no, that's her brother that unfortunately has passed away. That used to be able to do that. It was strong enough to actually open up the door when it was shut all the way.
oh
Uh,
wow.
but anyway, yes, Matt L. Anderson, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's the week of Thanksgiving when we record this, so gearing up for that. Uh, Anna Key, just last week came out on Prime Video,
Congratulations.
and thank you. That's two from Key 13 that have made it onto Prime Video. The other are George A. Romero's Resident Evil documentary.
Nice.
But Anna Key is, of course, the first one that I wrote with Amanda Megan, and so I produced the Resident Evil documentary, but Anna Key, I was very much involved in that production, so that's kind of a an awesome moment for me, and I'm finishing up Serious Profession, and hopefully, uh, I'll get to be able to license that to Amazon Prime and other streaming platforms as well. So,
Awesome.
just got to get it finished up. So things are going great, just
Good.
keeping busy, and I've got the rough cut of following done. And Quattro, I am down to finishing up the third act, editing that. I'll have that done hopefully by the end of the week. And after re editing more editing and sending it off to the sound engineer and scoring it and all that. Definitely should be able to meet our target of coming out early next year on both films. So
Alrighty.
uh,
You've
it's a
been
very
busy.
busy time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are here to talk about it's going to be just us right now, but we have another special guest that will be coming in after we're done, after we've wrapped up and everything. That's going to give us a little 10-minute stinkometer score and chat about it and everything. But we're going to be talking about martial law.
Yeah.
Martial Law is a 1991 film. It reminds me of the canon films of that time period, very much like that, and I'm really excited to dive into it. It is a movie that I had heard of for a while, but had never seen. So I was really excited to watch it, and then I was also really excited to talk about it. So we'll be back to talk about that after we listen to some mood music. And we're back. All right. So we're going to talk about martial law. Was it Chad McQueen slash
Yep.
Cynthia Rothrock slash David Carradine film.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that cast alone, I mean, that's amazing. You know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's it came out in right in 1990, and that's when David Carradine really came into his own as the B movie king.
Hmm.
He hadn't done Kill Bill yet. So he'd been coasting for the most part on Kung Fu and then a couple of the movies from the 80s. But he really cemented his B movie status because he was like Nick Cage. He just started popping up in everything.
You had to pay the bills,
There's one,
man.
yeah, there's one movie that he showed up in called Animal Instincts, because that was the other part of the 90s, was the kind of Zalman King, Red Shoe Diaries, 9.5 Weeks, sexy, sexploitation movies that really kind of came into their own. Shannon Tweed and all those in the 90s. For me, that was kind of a renaissance. I adore those movies because they're so, you know, they were as close as to adult films as you could get without crossing the line.
Yeah, they were
And
like was Skinamax movies before Skinamax, you know.
right, and they were so cheesy at times. But I just loved it. And when I saw David Carradine in Animal Instinct, which is decidedly a low budget flick, I was just like, what the heck is he doing here? What is Frankenstein from Death Race 2000 doing in there?
He-
And so yeah, so I that's again seeing him in martial law, I was like, what?
Mhm. I mean, and he didn't have a small part. It wasn't like, you see a lot of movies these days where they get like Eric Roberts for like a day and then they have him throughout, but it's like a minute each scene. So he'll have like maybe 4 or 5 minutes in the movie, total, but it'll be like throughout the whole movie. So it looks like he's been there for, and this David
Yeah.
Carradine's in it for like half the time at least,
Oh yeah. Oh
and I
yeah.
I was happy about that,
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Jack Palance in Tango and Cash,
right?
which is another one of my favorite movies from that time period. Um, and so he wasn't just oh, okay, like, we got David Carradine for 5 minutes. Let's maximize him. He has a pretty substantial role. And it's just a pleasure to watch him just chew up the scenery, which he can do. That's, I mean, he was just so much fun in that movie. I mean, everybody was.
Had you watched
And
anything other than like maybe The Karate Kid that Chad McQueen had done?
Not really, no. I was, which is kind of funny considering that I loved some of those kind of movies. I loved Cynthia Rothrock's China O'Brien, and of course, I'd seen her even earlier than that in Yes, Madam from Hong Kong back when she was doing the Hong Kong actioners. But no, I didn't really know much about Chad McQueen. I, I don't, honestly, I'm looking at his filmography right now. I don't even remember him in half of the things that are
Well,
on
do
here.
you do know he's Steve McQueen's son, right?
Yeah, and I know he passed away last year.
So
But
last,
again,
yeah.
he didn't really do a lot. He only did 20, according to this, 26 films, and a lot of these were low budget. I mean, it was very obvious that martial law was supposed to be his vehicle.
Which is
Because
funny
of the
because in the sequel he's not in it, you know.
right,
In martial
right,
law too, I think it is Cynthia Rothrock who takes over or something. Which
right.
goes to show you like people cared more about her because she's an actual martial artist. I don't think Chad McQueen was at that time. I think he was maybe he liked to do that stuff, but I'm looking him up. I don't think he did I don't think he was a black belt or anything, or
No, I mean
not
most of his movies. I'm just looking at. They were either small parts in big movies, or they were just,
big parts in small movies.
kind of action. I mean, they were actioners. But yeah, I mean, obviously martial law was supposed to be a vehicle, and it had the super goofy dialogue, and the captain was completely useless, and I mean, it had all the 90s tropes, just, and the fact that his nickname was martial law. I mean, really, I mean, come on, you can come up with something better. But I
I
get
thought that was just gonna be the name of the movie, not like what his nickname was and stuff.
Right,
Like
right.
I didn't think it was going to be like Chad McQueen is martial law, right?
Right, right.
Like that's
I mean,
ridiculous.
if it had been that was his, he was a marshal, a federal marshal, and his last name was Law, then I would have just totally bought into it. Him, people calling him martial law. I would have bought into it 100%. But this was just kind of like,
Well, that martial is spelled differently than the martial because the whole idea was it was supposed to be like martial arts law, or whatever
right,
and everything.
yeah,
And these people know karate so they can and I think about that time in the 90s and maybe even late 80s, there was this trend of using martial arts, in everyday stuff like like let's make it a martial artist out of a karate like a karate person out of a cop, karate cop,
yeah,
things like that. Which there is a movie called Karate Cop, by the way. It's
right. Oh, I'm
supposedly
sure.
terrible. I haven't
Uh,
seen it yet, but I want to because I own it somewhere. It's in my collection.
Oh, let's see, and then you've got, like American Ninja, the ninja movies. I love the fourth one, the one where the girl gets possessed and all that. I mean,
Oh no, that's a Ninja 3. That's Ninja 3.
Ninja 3, you're right, right. That
Yeah,
is
and
Ninja.
I don't think that was actually connected to anything. It was just called Ninja 3, The Domination or whatever. And it wasn't actually, we did review that for like What the F Fridays because that movie is so like weird. It just goes off on its own, like a whole bunch of different, it's like four people had different ideas for movies and then they just threw it into like one, movie or something, and have one
Yeah.
writer for them all. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, Sho Kosugi was in it. I mean, so it kind of did that, but yeah, I mean, I love the 80s and 90s kind of martial arts. And of course, once the 90s came and it was all direct to video. So many classic, but I don't think I've ever seen them on DVD, direct to video films. I love those.
Hmm.
Absolutely adore those.
Well,
And
nowadays we don't really have that anymore because
no, no.
you don't go direct to DVD anymore. You go direct to streaming. So,
Yes.
and even then, there's not the level, right,
Right.
of that stuff. Like there's nobody making movies like this anymore, This movie is not getting made like that. They are completely, they've changed the game. And so and because the studios pretty much hold the streaming stuff, right? There's very little indies, like unless you did like Tubi, direct to Tubi or something. There's really not going to be movies like this anymore, and that kind
Yeah.
of
I mean,
sad.
well, that's the reason why I created my Cinephoto line at Key 13 is because they don't make movies like that. And so that's why I made movies like Quattro and these things, the Killer Koosh Balls, which, I've got some reshoots to do on that one. There's just not enough Killer Koosh Balls
Hmm.
to make it truly
The Killer Koosh Balls movie.
yeah, truly a B classic cult film, which is, not, so
You want it to be like Critters or,
right, right,
those kind of
exactly.
style. Uh,
Yeah, I wanted it to be more like that. We just have to do some reshoots, but once we do, but I love those movies in the 80s and yeah, I have my, the big ones that I do like Anarchy and Following and Serious Professionals, more, dramatic, films.
right.
Uh,
The
but
award
I
winners.
love, yeah, but I love doing the B movie stuff, and that's what I'm doing with Quattro
Yeah.
and things, and once Heavy Duty Man gets finished in the editing process, so those are ones. that I'm really hoping to be able
And the
to
sorority girls one,
get back. What?
and the sorority girls one that you're
Oh
doing.
yeah, Sexy Sorority Sisters of Death.
That that if that's not a B movie title, I don't know what is. So,
I know. But you know that one unfortunately right now is on the back burner until I get everything caught up. But I hear you, and I know a lot, you know, and there are some people who do it, but they go so far to the other end of the direct to video. I'm talking about like those old shot on high eight videotape films that look like they were shot on high eight videotape. You know,
mhm.
martial law. Like you know, those movies. They either go that way too far that way, or what these kind of movies today. They're like. So the one with Uma Thurman, there's like they get like stars that maybe have kind of passed their popularity date, but still, when you compare to the budget to martial law, compared to the budget of what would be considered a film of that type, it's so totally different.
Well,
It is still bigger and better, even though they're maybe a tenth of the budget. And I guess it's because with movies now being, 100 million to make, and they make these other mills for 13 million, where martial law, I'm sure, was made for like 5 mil. You know,
probably less actually.
yeah, yeah,
Because and that's my and that's my thing on it is that what would probably be the budget if you were let me see what the budget what
right.
is the budget of martial law because um it's one of those movies where uh what is it it's one of those movies that probably costs like what would be now like $1 million,
Right.
and stuff. But still looks like, $5 million. And a lot of that is because, and I'll tell you this, before I forget, because I thought in my head when I was watching it. So I just got back from LA, and my dad and I did this like very big trip. We were going around to all these different movie locations and different places. And one of the areas was Chinatown. And I was watching martial law, and there were shots that I guarantee you were from Chinatown back then in 1990s. And I was like, oh my God, they're because when they have that scene where he is actually in Chinatown, I think,
Hmm.
and he's talking to the Chinese people, and then the guy gets shot. That was literally, I think, where we were at, this area that we were at. It looks a little different, but like similar enough. Then, did you notice where they have a really big, like, where the scene where the brother has to shoot the guy
Oh
and
yeah.
lets him go? Do you know where that is?
No, no. Where was that?
That was at Griffith Park.
That's right. The Griffith Park, the observatory.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so funny because so this was like my second or so. Well, I don't know when I watched whatever, but like my dad and I watched La La Land because, and there's a scene in Griffith Park and stuff in there, and it's ridiculously like it's a musical, so they're doing musical numbers inside the observatory. It's ridiculous, stupid. But it's whatever's grand. And then there we watched Rebel Without a Cause, and that has some like fight scenes at the Griffith Park Observatory, even like almost a shootout scene there. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, but those people probably, at least I know La La Land paid for it, and I'm pretty sure Rebel Without a Cause paid, there. But I'm pretty darn sure martial law just snuck in there and just filmed their scenes with the guns and stuff, as quickly as they could when they were closed because they closed at 10 p.m.
Right,
So I'm
right.
sure after 10, they ran in there when they snuck past guards or whatever, shot their scenes, and then said, "Oh, sorry, we didn't know we were supposed," and ran away, ran out and stuff. And that to me is guerrilla filmmaking at its finest. But it's also like that's LA, if
Right,
you're gonna get
right.
you're gonna get like the biggest one.
Yeah.
Uh
Well, like, Terminator a lot of time. A lot of stuff that they did in the first Terminator movie, they didn't have the permits and they had to just kind of squeeze it in. And I used to at times I've done it where I've done the guerrilla filmmaking. And I tell you, the stress for that sometimes is just a bit much.
hmm
Uh, when we were doing following, I got a permit to film in the park that we filmed quite a few scenes in. And I'm glad that we did because we kept getting hassled by people
hmm
saying, you better have a permit. We're like, yeah, we do.
hmm
And, so, I don't get me wrong. I've done my guerrilla filmmaking and hell, I still do at times. And that's what I loved about it. And I agree with you. I don't think martial law probably had the permits, or they had a permit maybe to shoot on the land, but not in all the places they went. And
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that's we were limited to this area. But that's what kind of makes these movies so much fun. And the thing is, though, you can't tell that if it was guerrilla or not because they still made it as looked as good as they could with probably an independent film crew. Although I'm sure they were probably union. I'm sure you really can't make a movie in LA or New York without a union crew.
hmm
Uh, but still, those kind of movies just really, they captured the true independent spirit because there was no Miramax or Dimension or New Line was kind of like that, but they were still studio owned.
Yeah,
New
there's
World, the New Worlds of
Concord and
Concord and all of those, and the company that made martial law, I forget which one it was,
uh,
but it's that kind of stuff. Those kind of movies I just absolutely love. One of my favorite movies from the 90s is Nemesis, the science fiction cyborg movie with
uh-huh.
Gruner. And I mean that movie, I love that movie. And like you said earlier, you miss those I miss those kind of films. I just don't feel like we get those. Even
Well,
movie
they are making a sequel right now. Did you know that?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
I
not
know.
happy with it. I'm not happy with it, but
It's
uh
well, I'm hoping they do better than five because five,
that's the same person who did five that's doing
yeah.
six.
Well,
So
five pissed me off because they made the Red Army Hammerheads the bad guys when they were always the good guys. And so for that part, once that happened, that kind of just took me out. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna watch it. I'm
no,
gonna
Lord, I'm
watch it
sorry.
because I have to because I love the Nemesis. I love Nemesis 2, um, Nemesis 3, 4. 4, I liked some of the visual aesthetics they did. And then, I mean, it's just like the Halloween movies. No matter how bad they are, no matter how many times Busta Rhymes fights Michael, uh, I'll still watch it. I'll still watch it no matter how
Whoops
much.
Michael's ass or whatever, kind of thing. I so I I love these, guerrilla filmmaking movies. I love them. I do believe that there are still some, but they do need a really good budget, right? So
Hmm.
there's a Dolph Lundgren movie that just came out like a few years ago, and a friend of mine directed it, and it was called Acceleration, and everything.
Okay.
I don't know if he's a friend, but he's some, fellow filmmaker that I know.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I would say friend. And I got to meet him. I got to meet the guy, and I told him I loved Deceleration, and I did a review of it. Because it was a lot more fun than I was expecting. But like, these movies are about the closest thing. So there's still people like Jean-Claude Van Damme still making movies. There's still they're not they're not double impact anymore. They're not I mean
I
only
come in peace.
yeah, I was gonna say only a few could be I Come in Peace, because that movie is just god awful. But I think, it didn't matter. I remember seeing that Canon video movie, and Sylvester Stallone was like, apparently Sylvester Stallone told one of the producers, "You gave that guy all the lines, for Masters of the Universe or whatever,
Oh yeah,
during
yeah,
that
yeah.
and stuff." Like and it's because he knew Dolph had done, had done, was it Rocky 4 or whatever,
Right.
and didn't and wasn't the greatest actor at the time, but but it's funny because probably people said the same thing about Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time, so.
Well, I mean, Sylvester Stallone for the longest time because of kind of his voice, everyone thought he was kind of dumb and was it really gonna, in Rocky, they felt that he was Rocky. Well, he's not. He is so not.
Hmm.
In real life, he's not Rocky Balboa. He's not John Rambo. He is Sylvester Stallone, and he is a very shrewd businessman. And so he it's just always kind of funny, when he did Rocky Four, when Dolph Lundgren did Rocky Four, then he did Red Scorpion, or maybe he did one before the other, but Red Scorpion was the next Dolph Lundgren, and he was just being that, and then of course the Punisher.
Yep.
He was in the Punisher movie, which I really couldn't say much about that one.
Well, I
Um,
mean,
but
that's
I mean, when it's and then I Come in Peace. I liked him in I Come in Peace, even though the movie has got its faults. I absolutely love that film. I thought it was just nothing but nonstop fun.
well, the
And
problem with the Punisher movie, it was not the Punisher. It was if you look at you didn't even look at all the cast members, the characters. None of them are the other comic book characters. It's like the Punisher was transferred into some other film or something. They tried,
right,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, it could
It
have been
doesn't feel like a
another.
Marvel movie and stuff and whatnot. They tried an R-rated movie. It didn't work. They're gonna try. I think Punisher is gonna be the Punisher is gonna come, like he's doing the Born Again, which I think he's great in Born Again, Daredevil series for Disney Plus. But then he's also gonna be in the new Spider-Man movie, and I'm like, wait, they're gonna do a PG-13 Spider like Punisher for like that's gonna be a watered down Punisher, like he
Oh
can't.
yeah.
You know, it's funny. Somebody made a like a meme that had him say like, they're like is like Matt Murdock tell him stop killing people, or whatever, right? And then the next, he's like, no way, I'm gonna keep doing it, right? And then the next one, it's like Peter Parker saying stop killing people, and he goes, okay. Like it's just like that's like how it's gonna have to be because but anyway, that's not that's off track. Um,
Yeah.
to go back to this movie, um,
Yes.
and go back to this film, I did like the setup. I like the storyline, involving the idea that the brother had gotten into some really bad stuff or whatever. So like,
Yeah.
was got into dealing with you know, what's his name? David Carradine's character and everything. By the
Dalton
way,
Rhodes. Yeah.
that whole bit where he knew how to do that one thing that kills everybody and he keeps doing it. You're waiting for him. Like he did it to the brother and he did it to the to two other people, or whatever.
Right.
And it's kind of cool looking. And then Chad McQueen can do it. like to him. Like, I mean,
Well,
I
I mean,
come on,
uh,
it was ridiculous.
it's it's a '90s movie, of course. The guy did it. Of course, I'm just sitting there, and when David Carradine's doing the thing, I'm just thinking of the one from Kill Bill. Was it the Five Finger Death Punch?
Yeah,
Uh, and so I'm just sitting there going, "Oh, I bet Quentin Tarantino put that in there because of this movie."
no, I don't
Uh,
think so, but I think that is a funny coincidence. Like,
yeah.
I don't think. I mean, maybe Tarantino's probably seen it, because I feel like that dude just watches movie after movie after movie, no matter how bad they
Oh
are.
yeah.
Um, maybe not me. I don't know. With how he is now, he's very picky too. Like he's always kind of said like the 70s were the best time period for movies or whatever,
Well,
And
I
what
mean, the '70s was when the late '60s and early '70s when the Hays Code finally went away. And before the true ascension of the tyranny of the MPAA
hmm
came along, and then the direct-to-video market. So that I have to agree that the '70s had a lot of stuff and a lot of experimental and a lot of trying to do go well beyond. Alien is a prime example of the '70s. The movie to still looks like it could have been made today. There is nothing in that movie that really feels dated.
hmm
Even in the new Alien TV series, they built their ship like the Nostromo of that time period. It looks like it. And, and then the fact that it was, you know, just workmen in space, they completely subverted the bug-eyed alien genre
hmm
in so many different ways. They made it gory, they made it violent, they made the people and the characters real. They weren't just paper thin creations.
hmm
So I could see why Tarantino would say the '70s were the best movies ever, but there was so many great things in the '60s, and even with every era has some great films. The Third Man from the '40s, is a fantastic film. It's still talked about today. um I think every era has its best films, and we all have our personal favorites. Me, I was born in the '70s, so I really didn't get into the '70s movies until I was much older. I grew up in the '80s, and so the '80s for me is my decade. But then the '90s and the direct-to-video and the accessibility of getting those videos. That's why I have such a soft spot, which is why I want to make movies like those again. But I want to make them of the quality of like a martial law, like of Roger Corman, who is one of my idols.
Well, and that a lot of that has to do with budget. And the problem
Right,
today is that uh is that we have the means, we have the technology at our disposal, um, and everything just makes it cheaper, right?
right,
So, and that is what like companies want, the distribution companies today are like, Wild Eye and SRS Cinema and people like that they want $20,000 movies or less,
right,
because first of all, that means that they don't have to pay you anything because, it's so low budget, right? Because once you make a movie for like $100,000, you're probably expecting to get paid or get your investors to get paid back, their investment. And it used to be like that. You look at Clerks and Reservoir Dogs and all of these movies that were independently produced, people are like Reservoir Dogs cost like $800,000. That's it. There wasn't even $1 million to produce that movie. And people don't think about how, indie that is. I mean, they went off into Sundance, and yes, that movie like won a lot of awards, like a Cannes and all these other things, and was able to skyrocket, him. Plus the fact that he sold a couple other scripts, like Natural Born Killers and True Romance. True Romance is my favorite. It helped, skyrocket Quentin Tarantino. But his movie had to be cheap, but not too cheap. $800,000 back in the 90s is like a little over a million something, maybe 1.5 million today. So that's really what you have to look at, getting. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm never going to get that. So I'm just going to go make a movie for $20,000 and get it made and everything. And I'm like, good, you're going to continue with your hobby. You know, it's a wonderful thing. That's not what I want to do. And I'm not saying I sound like I want to be like I'm much above that or anything. I'm not above people who make $20,000 movies. That's perfect. That's what you want to do. I'll watch it and I'll review it for my movie stuff, and everything. But it's not what I want to do. I want to make movies for at least 300 grand or more. That's where I want to be because I feel like you can get the best actors, you can get the best quality, you can get the best amount of days. You know, some people are talking about, oh, I make a movie for, over a weekend. And I'm like, that's not a movie, that's a student film, man. Like, I mean, some people can do it. Like Chris Seaver does that and they're movies, but like give that dude a month to make a really good movie. Imagine what he'll come up with, or whatever. And people will be like, well, he's not, he hasn't been, necessarily looking for that. Like he's happy making the movies he's making, and everything like that. And the one time he actually tried that was Karaoke Kid, which we've reviewed on Indie Film Cafe, and it wasn't what it was. It was, you could tell he tried to make a mainstream movie, and it didn't feel right because Chris Seaver is not mainstream. There's some people that are not mainstream.
Right.
Um, Matt Burns. I don't. He's Matt. He
Oh yeah.
produces he produces a lot of films. A lot of them are really good indie films. They're out there making these low budget indie films, and God bless him because like he's been doing this for a living. It feels like I don't think he has a regular job. You know.
No, he does, but yeah, he definitely, you know, I've known Matt pretty much the entire time I've been involved in making movies. So he definitely puts a lot of his heart and soul into getting these films made and being a part of it in whatever capacity. So and he's perfectly happy where in the niche that he has carved out for himself in this area, and more power to him. But for me, I'm like you. I want to move on to bigger and better projects. But I also know that there's really, these days, there's really two ways that you can do that. One, somebody, and I mean somebody,
Hmm.
somebody high up in the industry that, is able to pitch your work. Because I mean, the agent won't even talk to you unless you've had a success, which is the
Right.
other thing. You either got to do a Long Legs, or you got to do a Blair Witch, or you got to do a Skinamarink. You got to do these films that just blow the water for a minimal budget, or like James Gunn, when he first started out, Slither, and then he hit lightning in a bottle. When you hit lightning in a bottle, suddenly and your movie makes a lot of money.
Hmm.
That's the other way. It's either somebody deep in the industry, which most of us don't, or you make a movie that's lightning in a bottle and all of a sudden explodes. Um, I haven't made either one of those types of film
Well,
yet.
and somebody told me you make a short film. Yeah, actually, it was Rebecca McKendry and Ryan Turek. Ryan Turek is a big part of Blumhouse. And I asked him point blank, how do I get a script to Blumhouse? Right?
Huh?
And they said, Rebecca was like, do you mind if I take this, Ryan? And he was like, sure. Right? So she goes, make a really, really good short film. Get into festivals that eyes are going to be at, right? Make a really good
Mhm.
short, show it to festivals. Then the festivals, will we'll take a look at all these big time people take a look at this look at the movie, the thing, and then you will most likely get attention, and it is true because you look at
Yeah,
a lot of James Wan, the other James, not James Gunn, but James Wan, who went
right,
on to do who did like started out with Saw and now has the Megan movies and other things under his belt. He said that or he has people who has produced, who's written and directed movies for him that were based on a short film. He saw a short film that they did. He said, "Okay, I'd love to you know, for you to work, work on our next Annabelle movie or something, or
right.
whatever."
Well,
And that's what you got to, or feature. Sometimes it's a really good feature that people are like, that's really good, independently made and shocked people. And those are the ways to do it these days. And it is possible, and it's possible to get, like I said, 300 grand, I don't think is that unrealistic. Now, to say 3 million, that might be a little bit unrealistic for somebody who's never directed anything before, because that's going to be the first question people are going to ask, when they're
right.
putting up that money is, what else have you directed? And if I'm like, well, I've directed a bunch of shorts and an anthology, they're going to be like, I need a feature that you've directed that's done awards or something, But if you make $100 to $300,000 movie, and do it well and get into the hands of people, somebody will take a look at that and say, whatever. And that's better than, I don't know. I hate to say it, some of the crap that's getting made, and that sounds terrible, but like, it's just, it is what it is, like, am
Well,
I
what a good example of what you're talking about is Ari Aster,
Ari
who,
Aster?
yeah, I mean, this the strange thing about the Johnsons, holy crawly, was that a messed up movie? But then he made Midsommar, which or Hereditary and Midsommar, which are both really messed up movies. But he's the prime example. He hit that lightning in a bottle. He got the acclaim for the John, for Strange Thing About the Johnsons. Then he moved on to those movies, and and because of that, so yeah, I mean, I've tried. I'm trying all those different things myself. Anna Key has won a ton of awards in so many different categories. It's not, but when I was shopping it around to companies, they all passed. Not a single one seemed that interested in being a part of it. And I was like, well, this is a good movie with a great cast. It's got, all this stuff here, but it for some reason, maybe because we didn't have $100,000 to spend on it or whatever, it just didn't seem to catch on,
Hmm.
or people seem interested in it. And trying to raise $300,000 is a lot of money unless you have a really hardcore established um repertoire of films.
Hmm.
I tried getting 250 for Sexy Sorority Sisters of Death, and I barely made it. I didn't even make it past 1%. And you would think that a movie of this, but because I don't have that steady stream of product or
Hmm.
output, like say, a Brad Twig or some of these others that are out there. Trying to get that kind of money is just very difficult. So, I'm hoping that one of my films will be that lightning in the bottle. And if it's not, I that's always, of course, the big thing. I didn't come into this world with the hope of making a big ticket payday, you know.
Right.
Resident Evil, did decent, but it's not going to be a payday. None of my films are going to have been a big ticket payday, and that's okay if they're not. I just want them, like Anarchy going out on Prime Video is huge for me because it means that finally more people can see it, and it's also on the Film Hub's new streaming service Relay, and it
Nice.
just feels great that more people. It's now accessible to more people. Um, I'm hoping that a lot of people watch it over the Thanksgiving holiday and that maybe it trends or maybe, it gets some good Amazon reviews or whatever. Um, but I've moved on, moving on to my next
Right.
project. And my goal, my hope is that at some point one of these does, does what some of these other indies have done. And and maybe that moves me into a higher bracket and being able to make, when I say, okay, I've got Sexy Sorority Sisters of Death, the money just rains down.
That'd be
Um,
great.
yeah, it would be great. But, if you get into this business to make money,
Well, it's not about making money, and in
yeah,
my opinion,
yeah,
and I agree with you, it's not about making money, but it's
yeah,
about making quality films. Um, and I'm just saying that like a movie like this, like Martial Law,
mhm,
the best part about it is there, even though like, it had some quality to it. Like it might have been
right,
low budget, it might have been cheesy at times, I mean, the part where the cop comes to the door and what happened, that the guy's, delivering the bad news, that whatever, right? And then the
right.
mom
The
just
brother, the brother's
cries.
dead, right?
Yeah, and then you see Chad McQueen, and he does not seem devastated by the fact that his brother just died, which
No,
like all that stuff. But then,
no,
you
no. It's
know,
like, eh,
it was like,
he's
yeah,
dead. Okay, I'm gonna
I
go.
should have known that I should have known that this would happen. Okay, now I got to go kill this guy, for vengeance, But like, there's other movies like Kickboxer 2, The Road Back, which I absolutely adore. That's one of my favorites of the martial arts movies. And it had a similar scene. It has a scene where where Sasha Mitchell, sees, this guy Brian's get killed, right, by Tong Po. And he sees his, the mom there, and he's like, helping the mom get through, you know what I mean? And I was just
Mhm.
like, it's similar. Like those were made around the same time, 1990, 1991 time period where there was formulas to these things.
Oh
Now there
yeah, oh yeah.
are formulas to them, but they're formulas for low budget films. I don't know. Like I think, you know, I think even like movies like I want to say what's that crap, what's that movie? The really Velocipaster. I don't think
Oh
that was
yeah.
made for 20 grand. I'm pretty
Right.
sure it was made for a good amount of money, but a better amount of money than that, and it's because they need that to make it look quality, you know? And I feel like when people make a movie for 5 grand to 20 grand, a lot of times they lose the quality aspect of it, because they don't have anything. They just, they just don't have it, and it kind of bums me out, because I see all these amazing directors who I wish I could just spoil, like including yourself, could just give you 500 grand, go make your movie, 500 grand of this guy and everything. And if I ever get to that opportunity, like knock on wood, I'm able to do something like that. You can hear me. And I would do it to my friends. I'm sorry, no random person on the street can get the 500 grand. But like the people I know are really are good, and they just haven't had the budget yet. That's what I would do. That's what I would want. And I want that's the thing I loved about companies like Canon and the companies like what was the other one? Um was it this company that put out martial law was what is it?
What
Image
was it?
Organization, I think.
Right.
The title. They did Scanners. They did The
Oh
Brood,
yeah.
Wishmaster, The Dentist, Skinner Cop. I mean, these guys put out some serious good stuff. Chopper Chicks in Zombie Town. Um,
I haven't heard of that one. Now I
I
have
think that's a
to.
trauma. That became a trauma thing, I
Oh
think.
yeah.
I
Well,
feel,
again,
and trauma used to be like, and trauma still is like that. They have a
right,
budget, they have
right.
a big budget. Like, you
But
don't see
again,
Lloyd making a movie for 20 grand, you know?
yeah. Well, again, but see, trauma in a lot of these, you know, in some ways, I guess maybe because of the fact that anybody could really just can make a movie at this point. If you have a decent camera and a decent, and even some movies without decent sound will still seem to hit. It's really all about, unfortunately, these days it's about marketing, and it's about, no matter how good your film is, it's the outreach. It's, you've got to get people to watch it. And you can have, maybe somebody sitting on the next, you know, great epic film, but nobody's going to see it because they don't have any budget to spend to get the word out to get people to go see it.
Right?
And so it's tough. And yeah, I mean, I always joke that if I could get some of the money that some of the other people get on their crowdfunders, if I could get that kind of money, I could make, for $100,000, you would be amazed at what I could do.
Right.
But my problem is, and I admit this freely, I don't have the consistent output that other people have. And so when you don't have that, people aren't going to they're not going to risk their money if you haven't produced what they've already spent on. And I'm working hard on trying to get that done. That's part of the reason why that I'm pushing to get my two latest films, the ones I filmed this year, out early next year. I'm trying to close that gap, and I'm trying to get more of the films out there to show that I can produce a consistent quality output. And again, so that's kind of another thing that you have to have that kind of goes along with the lightning in the bottle, is you have to be able to prove that you can do it. You can get the money if you can prove you can do it. And, and if you can do that along with writing a quality film and doing a quality product, and it's because there's so many people out there, it's a very tough, where back then, a movie like Martial Law can get made, or even the movie, Animal Instincts, or
Hmm.
any of those movies, because the competition was far smaller, that you had to either know somebody, it wasn't even like doing the short films, and so like you had to know somebody that was willing to put up the money, or
Hmm.
you were willing to put up everything, your house, your car, max your credit cards, to do that, because you couldn't make a movie for less than $100,000, or at least a good movie, and like I was talking about way earlier, the direct shot on high eight videotape, those are what those movies are what a lot of us, include myself in that, are making now.
Yeah, I mean,
We're
a
just
lot of it's
making,
backyard filmmaking,
yeah,
and
but
stuff, and
we do a lot better now, at least,
it looks a
because
lot better now.
yeah, it looks better now. And so that kind of helps, but then we're also up against every other person who came up there. It's a tough thing, but again, the best thing that you can do, the best thing I tell everybody is you just got to keep grinding. You just
Uh-huh.
got to grind at it, and you may never get that $100,000 budget. You may never get that $300,000 budget. And in some ways, I call it the Carpenter syndrome. When John Carpenter started getting more money, his movies started not quite being as good, so when you cut him, when he started dropping his budgets lower, he was making better movies, at least in my opinion. So I don't think that's going to be the case, but I'm hoping that I can continue making the quality films. Of course, I don't want to get into a whole long debate about whether or not, writing and editing and all that stuff. The better your writing, the better the quality of the movie. That's not entirely true. You can have a great looking movie that is a piece of garbage, and you can have a crappy looking movie that's brilliantly written.
Hmm.
Um, it is all in on how
It's
you
all
do it.
together. It's
Right.
all got to be quality. So I think we haven't really talked as much about this movie.
I
Which is kind
noticed
of
that.
funny.
Yeah.
But I think there really wasn't much to say about it, to be honest. I mean, it's your standard, like the whole plot of the movie is that these guys have been stealing cars and what is it? They've been stealing cars and David, David Carradine's character is, I guess, I don't know, some of it was confusing with like political stuff going on, with the whatever guy that kind of
The arms deal he was trying to do with
yeah.
South American guys who weren't South American at
And
all.
then at the end he starts just shooting all the random people that were helping him out and stuff to cut him out
Yeah.
of money,
Except for
which is
that
just
obnoxious guy, that one of the obnoxious guy that
the
ran over his
obnoxious yeah.
brother. Oh, I was so glad when he finally smoked it. But I mean, the thing is, and I think this is part of where martial law kind of comes up, is they always market this thing as a Cynthia Rothrock film. It's not. She's a supporting character. It's a Chad McQueen film. And the reason why he didn't show up in the second one is because people didn't, no offense to the late Chad McQueen, but people liked Cynthia Rothrock
I mean,
more.
she was a hot chick who was kicking ass. Like, what's not to
Right,
like?
right. I
And
mean,
eh,
and her voice is still just kills me, but so much power in that kind of squeaky voice of hers. But she's still kicking ass today. And loved her in the movie Mercenaries,
mhm.
even though she wasn't really in it that much.
I think
So
wasn't that the Asylum like version of the Expendables or something?
I'm not sure who made it, but it had like Brigitte
Yeah,
Nielsen.
yeah, yeah. So it's like
Yeah,
it's a like all women Expendables movie.
yeah, Zoe
That's what they were
Bell,
trying to do. And I think it was
Nicole Bilderback.
the Asylum did that.
Yeah.
I
If they
remember it. It was
Yeah,
pretty like good, I guess. Like it was your typical like action adventure with these
right. I
chicks
mean,
who
it
kick
would have been
ass.
perfect in the time period that a film like Martial Law would have been made. Well, Cynthia Rothrock, instead of playing the CIA agent, she would have been the lead. She would have been like in a Zoe Bell character, or one of the others. So yeah, there's not a lot to talk about martial law. You can talk about, because the plot, as you said, it's formulaic. I mean, it is by the numbers, '90s actioner.
Right.
Um, the biggest thing that I think they did, and I wouldn't say they necessarily did it well, but they every character in some way, except for I hate to say it, Chad McQueen and his brother, every other character is quite memorable.
The mother,
Uh,
I would say, wasn't as memorable too. Like I feel like she kind of came and went, like there's a couple characters like and the captain was like you said earlier was useless.
Right, yeah,
Or
he was the
whatever.
typical movie, but I'm talking about like Wuhan, okay, and him constantly calling David Carradine governor,
Of the
which I felt that it just felt kind of forced, but as it turns out, he actually was raised in the UK, so
Yeah.
that is
He's just
actually
doing
how
his
you would have talked.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's his
well, depending
voice.
on where you live. And then of course, what was really funny is seeing Tony, I think Tony Longo, which I remember him from that show that he was a male nanny, uh, My Cousin Jake or something like that. I forget what the show was
Oh
called.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
Actually, funny enough, I have a thing with that. I actually was in attendance to one of the episodes of my bro of what is it? Of
was it Big
the
Brother Jake?
it was a Big Brother Jake, something like that. But I was in that show. There was an episode because it was filmed in like Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I actually went up and was in the audience for one of the episodes. It was like some weird
Oh,
episode.
cool.
Um, so yeah, but it's so funny because I think like Beverly Mitchell was one of the stars of that, and I actually got to meet her this year, but like she was not, like she was like a little child. She had not even done Seventh Heaven yet. So I know, like when I was watching it, I wasn't like that girl's gonna grow up to be whatever, like it was such a weird time period. But I think it was
Yeah,
called Big Brother Jake. Because
yeah,
he was the
something like
guy who did
that.
like Body by Jake, the same guy who did that, Jake Steinfeld and
Right.
stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think
I remember Tony Longo in a lot of things. Maybe I'm getting him confused with somebody with Jake. Yeah, because I think that was somebody else. Now that you mentioned the name, but I remember Tony Longo, and of course he's also left us. My goodness. And David Carradine left us. I mean, it's amazing. It's getting to, I hate the fact that I'm getting to the point where I'm seeing all these movies and TV shows that I love, and half the cast is dead. Uh, it's just kind
it's
of,
sad.
like, yeah, I mean, like Udo Kier, of course, just
She just
passed
passed
away.
away.
Yeah. And I mean, I hadn't seen a lot of Udo Kier movies, but what I had seen, he was so much fun
Mm,
in those movies, Barbed Wire, Johnny Mnemonic, Blade. And I loved him, and I wish that Rob Zombie had done it, the Nazi women of the not
yeah.
Werewolf Woman of the SS. Sorry, Werewolf Woman of the SS. I wish he'd been the. I wish they would have made that movie, but um, but anyways, just watching this movie, and I like the all the characters other than the two brothers were memorable. So Cynthia Rothrock kicking ass, David Carradine espousing his kind of dog eat dog philosophy. The Philip Tan's character, Wu, just doing the governor bit and all
Mm,
that. Um, as you said, it's a formulaic movie. It's by the numbers, but
still fun.
at least it was fun, and you watch, and you got to watch Cynthia Rothrock kick some ass, which is never a bad thing.
I showed you two other movies and and then finally I get a, thank you for picking this movie, next or whatever. Because I
Oh
bet you were
yeah,
like a little worried. Uh-oh, what has he got me watching today? We are gonna have to wrap it up or at that time period. But I just want to say thank you for coming on, and we're gonna do the stinkometer. And so for those people at home that aren't familiar with what the stinkometer is, it's a 1 to 10 score, 1 being very, very good and 10 being very, very stinky and bad. Zero point 0.5 if you want to, if you can't, if you can't choose between like 5 or 6 or 7 and 8, you can give it 7.5 or whatever. If you like to do that. Um, and then we will total all the scores at the end of this season and see which one, climbs up on the ladder of stink. Um, and I don't think this one will. I think this
Oh,
one, at least in my opinion, I guess I'll go first because there's no other. If I had a third person, I might choose them to go first. But I would say number, what is it? Uh, I'd say 4. That's what I would give it. Because it's not meh or boring to me, but it's not like great. Like it's not like a 1 to 3 in my opinion. But it's definitely up there as like this was kind of a fun little thing and I really enjoyed it. So I'd love to hear what you had to say.
yeah, four. I was kind of doing that. Yeah, four definitely. It is not. Uh, uh, oh, the other two. Yeah, no, those were high on the stinkometer. But
Redneck zombies and
yeah,
white wolves you didn't care about, but
I
you
couldn't.
had no like connection to it like I did, and
Yeah, yeah. I still feel a little bad, just a little, about trashing that one, but but no, definitely a four for martial law. I actually went and tried to find the second movie, and it's tough. And that's one of the things I do miss about the a lot of those movies is that not all of them have made it. Either they made it on DVD, they were cheap DVDs that are no longer in print,
Mhm.
so you got to pay the nose through them, or if you're lucky, they'll pop up on streaming or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, so I enjoyed it. You know, keep picking movies along that line, and I'll
Well,
definitely.
I mean, most of the point that we have is we like to go stinky, but we
Yeah.
personally at Indie Film Cafe love bad movies. It's kind of like Red
Oh
Letter
yeah.
Media. They love bad movies on purpose and they do their show like based around that. We love watching these. It's fun, to us. But we also know when a movie's stinky,
Yeah.
you know, you um
Redneck Zombies was definitely stinky.
it was, but I still thought there was a lot of charm in that one. You said a 9 on it. I think I gave it an 8.
Yeah.
The White
Yeah.
Wolves, you gave it a 5. I give that one a 4 as well. So, but yeah, I gave it 8, and Paul gave it an 8.5 for that. So for Redneck Zombies, I mean, we've
Yeah.
seen worse. Trust me. There's
Oh, I have a whole, you can't see it obviously because I got the cool background here. But direction that I'm pointing, I have a shelf full of the worst movies I have ever seen in my life. And I keep that shelf there because it reminds me where the lowest part of the bar. And I'm not going to say any of what the name of any of those films are because I don't believe in dumping on people regardless of how I feel about a film and how I, necessarily feel about the person. But definitely uh, Red Dead Zombies unfortunately would be in that on that shelf. The White Wolves would be on the shelf up that's decent, but I don't care about. And I mean, the honest truth is, I never would have gotten the movie in the first place.
Yeah, and I think you would have gotten Redneck Zombies either, unless
Oh,
like
I wouldn't have, would I would have if I had met the guys at a con and had a conversation with them and said, you know what, I'm going to give these guys a shot if I had never seen anything they'd done.
right.
I've got and at this point, I got a whole shelf that's at the top of movies I have yet to watch that I met the people at a con and said, you know what, let's give it a shot. And unfortunately, just because of my busy schedule, I've not given them their shot yet. But I'm kind of trying to do that every Friday. Um, kind of informal for right now. Um, but every Friday, I'm going to watch one of these films that I've been meaning to watch. And I
Hmm.
just did it with Debbie Does Demons.
Nice.
And so, I'm trying to give because, I knew quite a few, I've either mm, talked to or want to work with quite a few people in that film. So, that's something that I'm trying to do is just trying to do that. So I know bad films. I've seen the worst possible films. I
Oh, you
own
think
some
so, but
terrible.
trust me, we could educate you on some ones that you would that would blow your mind. We have
Wow.
one, we talk about this all the time, but we have one that we did called Miss Werewolf, and that was the movie that got a 10 plus. It was the first one to get 10
Wow.
plus. And it was because it's like 2.5 hours long, by the way. It's way too long, which really pissed me off because when Paul showed it, I said, I looked at it and I was like, it's, like, is too, like, it was, I think it was almost 3 hours long, that in that
Oh my
range. And we
goodness.
were like, and me and just Jen were doing it together. We looked at each other, like, nope, we're not watching it for that long. So kind of skipped around a little bit, because we couldn't watch a 3 hour long bad movie like this. But like, literally, there's a scene where the dude who's directing the movie is starring in it too, David the Rock Nelson, great guy, love him to death, but he leaves everything in the editing like thing. He does not, that's why his movie's 3 hours long. He doesn't cut anything. So he just shoots, 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 keeps it in, doesn't really cut away much. So there's a scene where he's walking like in a field or whatever, and this guy comes up to him. And that's generally when you turn the film off, right? When somebody comes and bothers you, and you're like, "Oh, I gotta shoot, stop this film." He kept it running. The guy comes up to him and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm making a movie. Do you want to be in it?" Or whatever like
Oh
that,
my goodness.
And he's like, and that's in the movie.
Oh,
And it's
oh, that
it's not like
hurts.
it's supposed to be a documentary or anything. It's just a real movie. So like it's
That
it was
would blow
bad.
that would
So
have blown my mind.
yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, so there's these hip hop locos. If you want to, that's on Tubi. If you ever want to torture yourself, you wouldn't even. I don't think you could even get past the first 10 minutes,
Oh,
of
oh
the movie,
yeah.
because
Oh, well,
it was awful.
when we get offline, there's a movie I want to talk to you about.
And I'm only
That
saying these, and I'm saying these because these are already movies we've reviewed.
right.
We just did one last season called Space Psychos. There was no space, there was no psychos. It was bad.
Oh,
It was so bad that we were planning to do it for our show Blue Cheese. We're trying to bring that back last year and or like earlier this year, technically.
mhm.
And we tried to bring that back and we put it on, right? And I looked at Paul and I go, "Nope, this is an indie film cafe. There's no way we could review this for anything other than indie film cafe." And it was perfect. Poor Just Jen, that was another one that she was suffered in. God, that girl has gone through so much, and a lot of those, she actually hit Paul. She like hit him,
Wow.
for showing her that movie. Like movies like that, those are the 10 plus, things. Those are the movies that you would not. In Hip Hop Loco, she did. Oh my God. I didn't realize that. Like Miss Werewolf, how about the three ones that are like the only one she hasn't been on that's a 10 plus. Even Paul wouldn't come on. And I had to do, and I'm sorry. We love you, Donald Farmer, W. Does Dallas director, but Shark Exorcist got a 10 plus because it's a bad movie. But we love him. We love Donald, and everything. And I bet
You
Shark
can love
Exorcist
the
2 was
person.
better. But I mean, you know, I don't know.
You can
Like
love the person and not love the movie. I mean that
necessarily.
there are people, yeah. And you can love the movie and not necessarily like the people.
Mm.
And it's just the way it goes. But anytime you want me to do this, I am down for it. No matter,
Thank you.
no matter whether you think I'll love it or you'll think I'll absolutely like not make it past the first 10 minutes. I'll still take it. I'll still give it a shot because you never know. It might be a diamond in the rough in my oeuvre of films. So,
Yeah.
you know me.
I mean, thanks. And you're not too far away from us, right? You're in like, are you in like Pennsylvania area or something like that?
Maryland.
Maryland, even closer. So maybe
Yeah, I'm in
someday
Frederick, Maryland.
if you can someday maybe you can come down to the studio or we can come up to you and we've done that before. We've actually gone up to see my friend Stephanie who lives in she lives in like Germantown, Maryland or
Oh
something.
yeah, I know where Germantown is. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
something
used
like
to
that.
live by that. I used to live down that area. No, absolutely. I would love to either come down. Of course, I got to have plenty of warning and have to be like generally have to be a weekend.
Right.
Because
Well, that's what we do.
but
We have people come down for like a weekend, and then we
yeah.
we put you in a house or something or a hotel, and then we just shoot. We're doing that. We're really excited. It'll be, I guess this is a spoiler for upcoming episodes or whatever. But we got in January, like literally January 1st. So bringing in the new year with G. Larry Butler, who's a an actor from California who's gonna come out and he's been in some really fun movies like there's the Double D Avenger that he was in and some B movies like that. But then he was also in, did you ever see that show about the Lakers winning time?
Nah, I'm not a sports guy.
I'm not a sports guy either, except for sports movies or television shows.
Oh
Those are
yeah,
my those are my jam. But he was in that. He acted across Julia Roberts in a TV show called Gaslit that she was in. He got to play her doctor and stuff like that. So there's been a few big projects that he's done, and he's coming out to do podcasts with us, but also to film. So that's gonna be fun.
nice,
Yeah, we got a
nice.
project that's coming up that we can't really talk about yet, but G. Larry Butler will be there to hang out and kind of
If you
excited
ever
about
need
that.
a background extra, just let me know. I don't act. I mean, I have a personality, but I'm not an actor. There's a reason why I'm a writer, director,
Do
producer.
you wouldn't do like a couple lines? You'd want to be in the
I could
background?
do a couple lines, but do not give me like, a lot because I love supporting independent films. I have not been going out and going on to a lot of the sets that I was being an extra just because I've been so busy trying to get everything caught up. But starting early next year, I'm going to be a lot. I'm going to make myself much more available to
Okay,
go out and be just be an extra, maybe do a line or two. I don't have a face for television. I certainly don't have the body for television. But I definitely don't mind being just being in the background, just helping out. I've done a couple of movies and always
cool.
always want to help out another filmmaker.
We'll definitely look into that for sure. We
Cool.
love we have a ton of Maryland people that are coming out for some of the projects and stuff, and
Sweet.
Shannon Atkins and people like
Mhm.
that, and Amanda Megan, your
Oh
co-director.
yeah, she's my
So
girl.
I know she's a sweetheart. She's been on the show, and she likes to do 31 Days of Indie Horror, one of our shows, and she and Shannon just did one, so that's coming out. We've got 31 days, which I'm going to probably bring you on at some point too for that, because it's a show where for 31 days of October, I do, indie film or whatever we talk about the indie,
Sure, sure.
stuff.
And,
So.
and and I'll be looking forward to that episode with Amanda and Shannon.
Yeah,
Um,
they're sweethearts. I adore both of them. Having
oh
them
yeah.
both on the show was just like, treat. Um, but yeah, this is what I love. I love, talking about indie films, talking about that stuff. Sadly, we talked about more about the industry, which is interesting. Which is interesting because, I would love to hear what other people, if people agree with us, disagree with us. So if you guys agreed, got through all of this, that's awesome because this is over an hour and 20 minutes. So I mean, it'll be an hour and 30 something minutes. Sorry, guys. When we have, John Ward, do his little bit. Hopefully, that's who's supposedly coming on, but you'll know who's going to come on because it'll be listed here on this episode. So, thank you so much, Matt. Everybody else, join us next week. I think is going to be Paul's episode, and if I'm correct, let me see. Um, yeah, I think it's Paul's episode next. Yep. And trust me, you guys are going to be shocked at this one. So, coming up. We've already recorded it, so I can say that. Um, but thank you guys so much for checking this out, and we'll see you soon. Till then, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, everybody, it's me, John Ward, and I am doing a separate review for martial law. Jonathan reached out and said, hey, we need a third person to do the stinkometer, and would you like to do it? You can record your own video and then send it to me, and we'll tack it on to the end. And so that's what you're listening to now. So I guess, what did I think of martial law? Well, first, I thought this was the Jeff Wincott movie called Martial Law, and I was excited about that because I like Jeff Wincott. And then he goes, no, it's the one with Chad McQueen and Cynthia Rothrock. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I looked up that one, and both of them are on Tubi. What I realized from the title, because I kept not finding the movie when I was trying to look it up, and I'm like, okay, martial law, I know I'm spelling martial correctly. Why is nothing coming up? And then I realized that the name is spelled like martial arts, not like, the country is under martial law. So, which then explains in the movie that Chad McQueen, Steve McQueen's son, both of them are now gone. Chad McQueen, I will always remember as the real baddie from The Karate Kid. So very unfortunate that he passed. But I realized that martial law with the context of this film is like martial arts. So for some reason, Chad McQueen's character is Officer Sean Thompson, and he does have the nickname of martial law, which is kind of weird. I thought when they were talking about it, they meant, oh, kind of like a Lethal Weapon. Mel Gibson is a lethal weapon. So, which makes no sense from, parts 2 through 4, as far as Lethal Weapon goes, that it just becomes a title. But with this, I always thought, like, well, why does martial law in this film just look weird? And his nickname is martial law in the martial arts sense, because he does martial arts throughout the film. And fires a gun. Cynthia Rothrock also does martial arts and fires a gun. And then they have David Carradine, the great David Carradine, who is always awesome. So, and I thought he looked really good in this movie. I sometimes he doesn't look great. I guess it's just depending on health and how he's doing. But I thought that he looked really good, compared to sometimes that I saw him. And I thought that he was doing pretty well in this. It looked like he was kind of giving it 100%. I think Chad McQueen was also giving this 100%. Not sure about Cynthia Rothrock, though. I mean, she's been in a ton of movies. It kind of bummed me out that her introduction was just like, I don't know if I remember correctly, her and Chad McQueen character just had sex, or maybe they're about to have sex, and that's how she's introduced instead of introducing her like the, badass martial arts chick that she is. That I don't know. She should have had the introduction of her kicking ass. And then you could start with Chad McQueen and show him kicking ass. That's fine. And then we see her kicking ass. And then, we now have, been introduced to our two main characters. And because they both kicked ass and they won the day and the baddies are in jail, they have sex. And that to me would have made more sense. I thought that her introduction was very weak. So that I did not like. It's weird that this film is 1991, but it looks like it's 1984. The music that's used, the clothes, everything looks like this was shot in the 80s. And I thought that was kind of weird. But I didn't hate the movie. Its directing is, I guess, well, I'm not going to say it's lackluster, because I will give the director credit that a lot of these fights, these martial arts choreographed fights, were done in one long take. And I really appreciate that. Normally, if you're watching television or movies and somebody is fighting, and if they're doing quick cuts, that means that one of the people or two of the people don't really know what they're doing, and it doesn't look great. So you do the quick cuts to make it look like they're fighting. In this, Chad McQueen does know martial arts. Cynthia Rothrock does know martial arts. David Carradine does know martial arts. And I liked that a lot of the fighting, even though they do cut to medium shots, close-ups, the camera's moving, that they do linger on fights for a little bit. I really enjoyed that. I like that a lot. When a lot of these kind of, I guess I don't want to say this was low budget, because the sound was fine. The camera work was fine. The lighting was fine. The acting, for the most part, is fine. It's what you would expect from a martial arts action type of movie, from the 90s, I guess you could say. So our three main people I liked. The one person that I really did not like is Chad McQueen's, his character's brother. And I'm not, is he might be, yeah, he's Michael. Michael Thompson is the character's name. Andy McCutcheon plays him. The actor is probably fine. He does a good enough job to annoy the shit out of me. I thought that he was a loser and a waste of space and a waste of time. So it's nice that, Chad McQueen's character, Sean, looks after his brother, cares about his brother, even though his brother is a raging loser. And he does, the film's been out long enough, he does get killed. And I was thankful for that. I was very happy that this guy would no longer be using up, good air. Let somebody else have it. That's worth it. But the actor was fine. And I'm guessing the character was meant to be that way. And of course, you have to have our main character with the loser brother, and the loser brother dies, and then our main character goes for revenge. And that was all okay. The one thing that I did find really funny is, of course, David Carradine is in Kill Bill Volume 2, and he gives one of the greatest speeches in that film about Superman and Clark Kent. And I love Superman. But he earlier shows the bride how to, Uma Thurman, how to hit him in the chest with her fingers. And that kills him. And in this movie, they do the same thing. And it's with David Carradine again. So it's Chad McQueen learns this technique, and his fingers are a little different, and he hits in a couple spots, but it's on his chest, and David Carradine dies. David Carradine uses it on somebody else, earlier, so we're kind of seeing it coming. But I just found it weird, and Tarantino has admitted to stealing from other movies. So who knows? Maybe he's seen martial law and thought that was a really cool idea and used it for Kill Bill, and thought, that it would be funny or ironic that David Carradine is in both these movies, and that type of deadly martial art is used on him. Lastly, there is an actor in this, Vincent Craig Dupree, who I'm like, God, I recognize that guy. And at first I thought maybe it's the black guy from Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. Yeah, New Beginning, that gets killed. He's in the outhouse and he's got the enchilada and all that stuff. But no, it's the black guy from Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, the real kind of athletic guy who gets his head punched off from Jason. And I thought that was actually pretty cool that he's in this movie. And he's been in also a ton of other films too. It's like he's in South Central. He's Reckless Kelly. Oh, don't know about that. That's an Australian movie. A bad film too. A Dutch, Class of Fear, China Beach, the TV show, Freddy's Nightmares, Knight Rider, American Drive-In, which I think I saw a very long time ago. That's 1985. But he's been in a ton of films. So it was pretty cool seeing him. And he's also a jerk. He's also a dick. And I believe he's the guy that David Carradine does the finger thing on him, and then he dies. I'm pretty sure that's him. I could be wrong. But I don't want this to go on too long. So my rating for the Stinkometer, and this is without knowing what the other guys gave it. I'm giving this a 5. I didn't think it was horrible. I didn't think it was great. It's pretty much all the martial arts, cop movies, family member dies, cop has to take revenge, type of films. So I'm giving this a 5. And that's, like I said, without knowing what the other guys gave it. Would I watch this again? Probably not. But if I found it on DVD for really cheap because of who's in it, I would probably buy it and add it to the action collection or action martial arts area. So yeah, I mean, I would own it if I found it for a few bucks, but I probably wouldn't watch it again unless somebody really asked me to. So, all right, everybody, thanks a lot. I appreciate you listening to this review. And if you just want just an in the middle action martial arts movie, check out Martial Law. It's not horrible, but it's not great.